Welcome aboard, everybody. Dr. Peter Glidden here, your steadfast advocate for health. This is my little video webinar tutorial on thyroid health. Thanks so much for tuning in and turning on. A lot to know about the thyroid gland, and again, a lot of misinformation. So I like to take it from the top with a little bit of anatomy and a little bit of understanding of the physiology, right? So let's go there. So the thyroid is a small gland underneath the Adam's apple. There's a nice little picture of it too. It has two lobes, just like your brain, two sides, right? A left side and a right side. Here's a better picture of it, or a different picture of it, so to speak. Here's the thyroid right here. That red shiny thing above it in this illustration is your Adam's apple. It's not your funny bone, it's your Adam's apple. That's the thing that moves up and down when you swallow. So the thyroid's right about here, and when the thyroid becomes swollen, that's referred to as a goiter, and it can, become quite prominent. That's more of a historical condition here in the United States and Canada than a present-day condition. There was something called the goiter belt here in this country years ago, where there was a certain part of the country in the Midwest, there was a swath of overgrown thyroid, enlarged thyroids, goiters, as they are clinically referred to. And it was one of the things that the federal government got right, because rather than subsidizing medical doctors to do thyroidectomies and remove the thyroid, they figured out that the thyroid these people were swollen because there was no iodine in their diet. So what did the federal government did? And they did a good thing. They made it mandatory for salt manufacturers to put iodine in the salt, and then people in the goiter belt started eating iodized salt, and the goiters went away. Now, you would think that having a historical understanding of curing an epidemic with medical nutrition should have been a heads up. Maybe it was a heads up for the pharmaceutical industry to make sure that that type of nonsense never happened again. Because remember, conventional medical doctors trained in allopathic pharmaceutical centrist medicine are not intended, they do not engender therapeutics, they do not apply therapeutics, they do not research therapeutics that intend to cure the condition, like they did with iodizing the salt to cure the goiter, right? No, let's not do that anymore. And this is where the knowledge set of the naturopath comes into play. So in any event, this is where the thyroid lives. The thyroid gland lives in the human body. A little bit of thyroid trivia. You can play this at your next family gathering. The thyroid is part of the endocrine system in the body, right? The body has many different systems. The cardiovascular system, it's the heart and your blood vessels, the nervous system, right? The brain and all of the nerves, musculoskeletal system. Well, there's the endocrine system, and it's the function of the endocrine system to regulate the metabolism of the body, and the endocrine system is responsible for manufacturing and secreting hormones into the body. We're gonna come back to this endocrine system conversation in a little bit here. The thyroid specifically, as part of the endocrine system, it's the thyroid's job to regulate the metabolism of the body, right? How hot you are, how cold you are, how fast your body digests things, your heart rate, things like that, right? The thyroid has an intimate relationship to the metabolism of the body and how fast or slowly, quickly or slowly, your body gets things done. And there are two major hormones to be concerned with when we're talking about thyroid function. Remember, if it's part of the endocrine system, Well, it's called a gland. If it's part of the endocrine system, it's called a gland, right? Technically, it's a gland. Technically, the thyroid is not an organ, it's a gland. And glands manufacture and secrete hormones. The hormones that the thyroid manufactures and secretes are thyroid hormone 3 and thyroid hormone 4. Thyroxine and triiodothyronine, to be specific. A little bit more about thyroid hormones. Interestingly enough, right, and this is how the Food and Drug Administration's use of iodine in salt cured the goiter epidemic. In order for the thyroid to be happy, in order for the thyroid to manufacture thyroid hormones, it needs iodine and some other things to do it, but it needs iodine. The thyroid gland, as far as we know now, in 2017, is the only gland in the human body that uses iodine. It's the only gland in the human body that uses iodine. So, iodine and tyrosine. The thyroid gland needs iodine and the amino acid tyrosine in order to function properly. Remember, these two are essential nutrients, which means that the human body cannot make them. So in order for the thyroid gland to be happy, iodine and tyrosine need to be imported into the body on a regular basis. Thyroid hormone 3 is 4 times as powerful as thyroid hormone 4. You would think it would be the opposite, but it's not. I don't know why they didn't name them, differently. T4 is converted to T3. So T3 is so important to the human body that it will make it from T4. So if there's not enough T3, but there's some T4 floating around in your body, the wisdom of your body, instead of manufacturing more T3, it just converts T4 into T3. But guess what it needs to do that? It needs the trace mineral selenium. It needs selenium in order to make that conversion. Now, in a startling feat of physiological stupidity, I think it was stupidity. Perhaps there was an ulterior motive, because the people that work at pharmaceutical companies are pretty smart. I don't know whether they did this on purpose or whether they thought this through or whatever, but the leading drug that people take for an underactive thyroid, hypothyroidism, an underactive thyroid, conventional medical doctors intervene with someone with an underactive thyroid by simply giving them synthetic thyroid hormone. That's how they think. It's how these people think. But the leading drug that is used to do that, levothyroxine, is T4. You would think it would be T3, because T3 is 4 times as powerful as T4. It does 4 times the work that T4 does. It's better. Body likes it better, uses it better. It's a better hormone, relatively speaking. But no. The pharmaceutical industry, in its lack of wisdom, says, well, let's just give T4. Now, you would think that in the little levothyroxine supplement, they would add some selenium, just so it's there, so that if the body in its wisdom needs to convert T4 into T3, it can do it because it's got the selenium, but they didn't even do that. Now, ostensibly, I think they did this because it would, produce less than stellar results. So people would feel a little bit better, but they'd still feel funky, so they have to take another dose of their thyroid medicine. I think that that's why they did it. Now, any of my patients who are currently taking thyroid medication, I recommend that they maintain the dose of whatever it is they're taking, and 99.9% of everybody is taking levothyroxine. I recommend they just maintain their dose and add selenium, iodine, and tyrosine into their program on top of the 90 essential nutrients. And often just by doing that, the drug that they're taking starts working much more efficiently and much better, and they get more bang for their therapeutic buck from the drug. Interestingly, there's another drug, it's called thyroid, which contains both T3 and T4, which if I have a patient and we've done everything under the sun holistically, and their thyroid is still under functioning and it just can't come back with holistic therapeutics, and we have to use drugs, which is rare, then the recommendation is thyroid. Now, I haven't prescribed levothyroxine ever. So, and if you already are taking levothyroxine, then, do my program for 3 months, see how you feel. And then, after you've been on the program for 3 months, because you need that time frame in order for your body to get saturated with the raw materials it needs to have a healthy thyroid, switch from levothyroxine to thyroid and see if you feel better. The vast majority of people who switch from levothyroxine to thyroid feel better. And something to understand about meddling with thyroid prescription hormones, right? When you change your dose of thyroid medication up or down, or you change from a patent drug to a generic drug, or you change from levothyroxine to thyroid, you have to wait 4 weeks before you can judge the effects of the change. 4 weeks with thyroid medication, more or less, before you can judge whether it was a good change for your body or a bad change for the body. Now, thyroid tests, so much confusion here. The vast majority of medical doctors test for something called a thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH, and this is the only test that they do in order to objectively look to see how your thyroid is functioning. And it is a bad, 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 and stupid test. I saw research over 18 years ago. 18 years ago? Yeah. I saw research when I was in medical school. Well, so it was much longer than that. It's more like 28 years ago. Group of doctors in Texas someplace took a couple of patients and they drew blood from them every hour for 24 hours. Right? Every hour for 24 hours. I wouldn't want to be that patient, but that's what they did. And they measured the TSH. And the TSH numbers were all over the place depending on when the blood was drawn. TSH, all by itself, is a ridiculous test to get a sense of how your thyroid is functioning. The only time that TSH is useful is if the TSH number is super low or super, super high. And even then, you got to have it tested again. So I don't recommend anybody ever get a TSH test, ever. There's no reason under the sun to get your TSH tested. But every medical doctor and their brother does it. The tests that you do want to get are called free T3 and free T4. Now, that's not because they're free. No charge. They test for the amount of circulating thyroid hormone 3 and circulating thyroid hormone 4 in the blood. And that's a better test, wouldn't you think? Let's test for the hormones that the thyroid actually makes and see what's up with that. It's a much better test than the thyroid stimulating hormone, which is just an old-fashioned, outdated, juvenile way to do it. But the ship of medicine turns slowly, right? Cholesterol. Every medical doctor thinks that cholesterol is related to heart disease. It's not. That's going to take 100 years for that ship to turn around. Pharmaceutical industry knows there's no relationship, but they keep churning it out because it's a cash cow, $25 billion a year. That's just in the U.S., if memory serves. But nonetheless, free T3 and free T4 are the tests you want to get if you are interested in figuring out your thyroid function. health or lack thereof of your thyroid, and another test called the thyroid peroxidase antibody. Now, this test tests for an antibody to the thyroid, and if it comes back positive, you have an autoimmune disease. Now, you know how I feel about autoimmunity. It's a misconception. There's something going on here, but your immune system did not wake up on Monday and decide to attack the body. And that's what the medical doctors think happened. There is something going on. An elevated thyroid peroxidase antibody test speaks to relatively large levels of inflammation happening in the body, specifically in the area of the thyroid. And that requires an anti-inflammatory protocol to be added to the thyroid health protocol. So watch the webinar that I did on anti-inflammatoriness. How to increase your body's anti-inflammatory capacity, to get a heads up on that. Okay? Okay, very good. Now, this is something that everybody who has a thyroid condition needs to do, and nobody does. And there is not one medical doctor anywhere in the world that recommends what I'm about to tell you. So pay attention. Remember, there's an intimate relationship between all systems of the body. This is the fundamental foundation philosophy of holistic medicine. Everything's connected, right? So in order for the thyroid to be happy, the circulation has to be happy, the nerves have to be happy, the rest of the endocrine system has to be happy, digestion has to be happy, right? Everything's connected. The specific system, besides the rest of the endocrine glands, that needs to be looked at in order to have a healthy thyroid, is the central nervous system. Specifically, the nerves that come out of your neck. Because it's the nerves that come out of the neck that go to the thyroid. The nerves in your butt don't go to the thyroid. The nerves in the low back or the middle back or the upper back don't go to the thyroid. The nerves in the neck go to the thyroid. All right? By and large. Now, if you're to take a sideways x-ray of the human body, sideways x-ray, from the top of the head to the bottom of your feet, there's a curve in the spine, an S-curve, and it starts in the neck. And here's a picture of a nice, healthy curve in the neck. You can see there's a little curve there, and that's what nature intended, and that's good. A lot of people are missing the curve, and they have a neck that looks more like this. It's called a military neck. You can see there's no curve there. And in some people, the curve will actually go the opposite way. That's rare that that happens, and that's usually only the case in some type of, physical trauma, car accident, ski accident, whatever. Fell out of a tree trying to get a coconut for your girlfriend in the Caribbean on vacation. But nonetheless, if the curve in the neck is not the way that nature intended it to, then the nerves that come out of the neck that go to the thyroid are going to be funky. So, if you are interested in having healthy thyroid, if you have a diagnosed thyroid condition, overactive thyroid, which is rare, or underactive thyroid, which is very common, or an enlarged thyroid, very common, go to a chiropractor or a naturopathic doctor. Have them do a digital x-ray of your neck and assess the curve in the neck. And if the curve is not curvy enough, then the naturopath or the chiropractor can give you a set of exercises to do every day in order to help put the curve back the way that nature intended it to. And they can also do some adjustments to help there. And again, you know my feelings about chiropractic. A good chiropractor is worth their weight in gold. All right? So, very important. You have to get the neck assessed if you want to have a healthy, happy thyroid. And if the curve of the neck is not correct, have the attending physician, not a medical doctor. Do not go to a medical doctor for this. A chiropractor or a naturopath, because they'll be able to give you a therapeutic intervention, right, to actually help the neck regain its natural curve. And if your x-ray looks like this, oh man, you are SOL. All right, that's actually a rabbit. So make sure your neck is in good standing, okay? All right, very good. The curve of the neck specifically. Next up to bat, a little bit more elucidation on the endocrine system. Just to review, parts of the endocrine system are called glands, and they manufacture and secrete hormones into the body. And here's the endocrine system. It starts in the middle of the brain, the pineal gland, this eeny, weeny, teeny, little tiny, it's called the master gland in the body. It's about the size of a pea. The hypothalamus, the thyroid gland, the thymus, the pancreas, the adrenal glands, the testes, or the ovaries, if you're male or female, right? So all of these glands secrete different hormones, but they're all connected because everything in the body is connected, and there's an intimate relationship between these. And, you know, it's kind of like, well, I mean, I don't really know a good metaphor, but probably the fire department, members of the fire department work more with the EMTs than they do with the police, right? Right? I mean, you know, every time you see somebody in the local mall carried away by a stretcher, it's always the fire trucks that show up and then the EMT trucks that show up in the ambulance, right? So different parts of the endocrine system have a tendency to work together more than others. And when we're talking about the thyroid gland, it's the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the thyroid, which are intimately related. The hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the thyroid are intimately related. So in holistic medicine, if somebody has a funky thyroid, right, they have an underactive thyroid, or a little bit of a swelling of the thyroid, or an overactive thyroid, again, which is rare, it happens. We don't just give thyroid support, we give thyroid, pituitary, and hypothalamus support, because you need to balance these. And also, you know, if your thyroid is underfunctioning, then the hypothalamus and the pituitary are going to be overfunctioning, and then you got to make sure that everything has enough stuff to work. Otherwise, it's like driving a car at 80 miles an hour, but there's only 1 quart of oil in the crankcase. Well, something's going to explode or catch on fire, right? So it's very, very interesting. This particular, it's called the hypothalamus pituitary thyroid axis, right, is intimately related with growth and development and weight and, you know, metabolism. So often you'll find that people who have a really super hard time losing weight, you know, they've done everything, they can't lose weight. It's an undiscovered thyroid condition or an undiscovered pituitary or hypothalamus condition. You know, on top of the chronic, egregious, across the board lack of nutrients, which is the first, second, and third thing to think about when somebody is dealing with a weight issue. Okay? So, in order for you to have a healthy thyroid, here's what you have to do, and it's relatively easy. You need to make sure you have the right tests. I don't care if you've had a TSH come back and it's really high or it's really low. It's not enough information to prescribe or make a diagnosis of how your thyroid is functioning. It's an irrelevant test. Don't even have it done. You need to get free T3 and free T4 and see whether or not they're inside of the reference ranges. And remember, I like to see blood work numbers in the middle of the reference range. Right? So if the reference range is from 1 to 10, I don't want to see your result be a 9 or an 8 or a 10. I want to see it be a 5 or a 6 or a 7. I want to see it be in the middle. I don't want to see it be a 1 or a 2 either. We like to see the numbers right in the middle. That's the Goldilocks sweet spot. And you can do the math and figure it out, because every blood work result gives you your numbers and then the reference range numbers, and you can just do the math and figure out if you're in the middle or not. Make sense? Okay. Curve in the neck has to be good. You got to get that figured out. And the only way you can figure that out is with a lateral x-ray of the neck, and digital x-rays are deliver way less radiation to the body. You don't need to be concerned about the radiation load from a digital x-ray. Okay? All right. You need to make sure every day you're swallowing iodine, tyrosine, and selenium. I mean, you need that. You need to support the hypothalamus pituitary thyroid axis, because those three glands are intimately related, each with the other. Interestingly enough, the essential oil of myrrh applied topically has been proven clinically to be beneficial for thyroid support. You know, like the three wise men, right? Frankincense, myrrh, and gold, right? I don't know. I'll take the gold. You need to stop eating the 12 bad foods, and you need to take the 90 essential nutrients. And that's basically the rundown for the first 90 days. So if you're dealing with a thyroid issue, overactive thyroid, underactive thyroid, right? A little bit of a swelling in the thyroid, then this is what you need to do for 90 days. And I'm going to show you how to do that next. To get the 90 essential nutrients and the 90 essential nutrients, here's what we do. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0, 1 bottle per 100 pounds per month. Plant-derived minerals, liquid, 1 bottle per 100 pounds per month. Beyond Osteo FX powder, that's the powdered calcium and mineral supplement, 1 bottle per 100 pounds per month. And the Prohoba Omega essential fatty acids, 1 bottle per 100 pounds per month. That gives you all 90 essential nutrients. To round it off for thyroid health, we do selenium, ultimate selenium. My recommendation for the selenium is 1 bottle per 75 pounds per month, not to take more than 4 bottles a month. 1 bottle per 75 pounds per month. Don't take more than 4 bottles per month. And the signs of you're taking too much selenium. Selenium is one of the few nutrients you can actually take too much of. So the signs that you need to back off on your selenium dose are your hair starts to get uncharacteristically dry or brittle. Your fingernails start to get soft or cracky, peely, or your breath starts to smell garlicky or fishy. Uncharacteristically so, all right? So if any of those things happen, drop your selenium intake by 50%, and you should be good to go. The HGH Youth Complex will give you the amino acid tyrosine and other amino acids, because when we give amino acids, we can't just overdo it with one of them or 2 of them and just take that, because it's a package deal. So when we are attempting to upregulate amino acids into the body, we need to give a lot of amino acids, not just 1 or 2. So even though it's tyrosine that the thyroid needs in this case, we need to give you a nice complex of amino acids, and the HGH Youth Complex does that nicely. There's the essential oil of myrrh, and one of the best herbal products, Good Herbs manufactures, the hypothalamus support. You know, it should actually be called hypothalamus pituitary thyroid support, but I guess they couldn't fit that on the label. But nonetheless, the recommendation, 1 bottle per 100 pounds per month. You can take more of the Good Herbs if you wish. Now, for iodine, just use iodized salt. And the best salt, in my opinion, is salt from the Great Salt Lake in Utah. It's called real salt. You can find it virtually anywhere. Real salt with iodine that's been added to it. And last but not least, the cruciferous vegetables. Broccoli, cauliflower, kohlrabi, kale, cabbage, and there's one more thing in there. Brussels sprouts. all suppress thyroid function. So if you're suffering with an overactive thyroid, you need to eat more of these foods. More of these foods. If you are suffering with an underactive thyroid, you need to stop eating these foods. Because if you eat them, they're going to suppress thyroid function, and your thyroid function is already suppressed. It's like taking a blood pressure medicine if you have low blood pressure. It's not a smart idea. You're going to pass out. So eliminate or increase these foods depending on your diagnosis. Give it 90 days and let the proof of the pudding be in the eating. Thanks for your time. I am your steadfast advocate for health, Dr. Peter Glidden. And God willing and the creek don't rise, I'll see you around campus.